the Philippines is hit by typhoons. No part of the country is spared. All provinces have been hit by a typhoon at one time or another. In recent years, the Philippines had been overwhelmed by powerful tropical cyclones, and the most recent one is Typhoon Ulysses last November of 2020. According to Pag-asa, or Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, about 20 tropical cyclones enter the Philippine area of responsibility each year. We have to be knowledgeable about tropical cyclones if we want to prevent the loss of lives.
The Philippine Islands lie on the path of tropical cyclones. So it is no surprise that Filipinos are used to rain, thunderstorms, and typhoons. The country is hit by approximately 20 typhoons in a year, causing damages in agriculture, residential, or commercial establishments, and even claim lives of whoever is in its path. You have learned in the previous year, in grade 7, how movement of air happens and its direction. We also found out how land masses or bodies of water affect the movement of the air. On this video lesson, we will explain how typhoons develop. We all know what a typhoon is, or more accurately, we know what to expect when a typhoon comes. We get a lot of rain and strong winds. Typhoon is a kind of cyclone, which is a low pressure area. Cyclone is a general term for a weather system in which winds rotate inwardly to an area of low atmospheric pressure. For large weather systems, the circulation pattern is in a counterclockwise direction in the northern hemisphere and a clockwise direction in the southern hemisphere. We have to take note that one source of tropical cyclone formation is the Intertropical Convergence Zone, or ITCZ, located around the equator. It is in this area that trade winds from the northern and southern hemisphere converge. ITCZ oscillates over the Philippines from June to November, leading to widespread cumulonimbus cloud formation that can lead to widespread rain showers and at oftentimes thunderstorms. Why do cyclones rotate counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere? Why do hurricanes spin clockwise in the southern hemisphere? Take note of their opposite direction in terms of wind movement. Hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones are all rotating storms found in the tropics. As a group, they can be referred to as tropical cyclones. Because of the Coriolis effect, these storms rotate counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. But what is Coriolis effect? Coriolis effect is an effect whereby a mass moving in a rotating system experiences a force, the Coriolis force, acting perpendicular to the direction of motion and to the axis of rotation. On the Earth, the effect tends to deflect moving objects to the right in the northern hemisphere and to the left in the southern, and is important in the formation of cyclonic weather systems. Tropical cyclone is a storm system characterized by counterclockwise rotating air mass around a central part called eye that has low pressure. It is a non-frontal synoptic scale cyclone developing over tropical and subtropical waters at any level and having a definitely organized circulation. Since our country, the Philippines, is located near the equator, along the tropics, so this weather system is called a tropical cyclone. In other parts of the world, these are referred to as hurricanes, typhoons, or simply tropical cyclones, depending on the region. In the North Atlantic, Eastern North Pacific, and South Pacific Ocean, they are called hurricanes. In the Bay of Bengal, Arabian Sea, and Western South Indian Ocean, the name is cyclonic. In the eastern part of the Southern Indian Ocean, it is Wili Wili. And in the Western North Pacific Ocean, they are called typhoons. Since our country is located in the West-North Pacific Ocean, we called it typhoons. Tropical cyclones can only form over oceans of the world except in the South Atlantic Ocean and the Southeastern Pacific, where a tropical cyclone could never be formed due to the cooler sea surface temperature and higher vertical wind shears. They develop at latitudes usually greater than 5 degrees from the equator. They reach their greatest intensity while located over warm tropical water. As soon as they move inland, they begin to weaken, but often not before they have caused great destruction. The Philippines is prone to tropical cyclones due to its geographical location, which generally produce heavy rains and flooding of large areas and also strong winds which result in heavy casualties to human life and destructions to crops and properties. Thus, it is of utmost importance to have sufficient knowledge on such maritime phenomena for beneficial purposes. The classification of tropical cyclones according to the strength of the associated wind as adopted by Pag-asa as of May 1 of 2015 are as follows. By the way, Pag-asa means Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration. Tropical depression. A tropical cyclone with maximum sustained winds of up to 61 kilometers per hour or less than 33 nautical miles per hour. Severe tropical storm. A tropical cyclone with maximum wind speed of 89 to 117 kilometers per hour or 48 to 63 knots. Typhoon. A tropical cyclone with maximum wind speed of 118 to 220 km per hour. Super typhoon. A tropical cyclone with maximum wind speed exceeding 220 kilometers per hour or more than 120 knots. In the Philippines, we use the same word for all categories of tropical cyclones. We call it bagyo, whether it is a tropical depression, a tropical storm, a typhoon, or a super typhoon. So at this point, let's discuss about the formation of a typhoon. A typhoon forms when winds blow into areas of the ocean where the water is warm. These winds collect moisture and rise, while colder air moves in below. This creates pressure, which causes the winds to move very quickly. Typhoons are most violent storms on Earth. They form near the equator over warm ocean waters. But remember that there are oceans in the world that does not produce typhoons because of their very low temperature. and that is the Southern Ocean and the Arctic Ocean. Take note of the geographical location of the Philippines. On the eastern side of the Philippines, we have the Pacific Ocean, which is a very good breeding ground for typhoons. That is why, on the average, we have 20 typhoons every year. The generic or scientific term for these storms, wherever they occur, is tropical cyclone. Other names they are given, depending on where in the world they developed, are typhoons, cyclones, severe tropical cyclones, or severe cyclonic storms. Whatever they are called, the same forces and conditions are at work in forming these giant storms, any of which can cause damage or devastation when they hit land where people live. Tropical cyclones are like engines that require warm, moist air as fuel. So, the first ingredient needed for a tropical cyclone is warm ocean water. That is why tropical cyclones form only in tropical regions like the Philippines, where the ocean is at least 26 degrees Celsius for at least the top 50 meters, about 165 feet below the surface. The higher the temperature is, the more suitable for the formation of a typhoon. The second ingredient for a tropical cyclone is wind. As the wind passes over the ocean surface, water evaporates or turns into water vapor and rises. As it rises, the water vapor cools and condenses back into large water droplets, forming large cumulonimbus clouds. This process is what we call as adiabatic cooling. These clouds are just the beginning. Unless these conditions are maintained, the wind will weaken and the low pressure area will dissipate. Meteorologists have divided the development of a tropical cyclone into 4 stages. We have tropical disturbance, tropical depression, tropical storm, and full-fledged tropical cyclone. Tropical disturbance, when the water vapor from the warm ocean condenses to form clouds, it releases its heat to the air. The warmed air rises and is pulled into the column of clouds. Evaporation and condensation continue, building the cloud columns higher and larger. A pattern develops, with the wind circulating around a center, like water going down a drain. As the moving column of air encounters more clouds, it becomes a cluster of thunderstorm clouds, called a tropical disturbance. Next is a tropical depression. As the thunderstorm grows higher and larger, the air at the top of the cloud column is cooling and becoming unstable. As the heat energy is released from the cooling water vapor, the air at the top of the cloud becomes warmer, making the air pressure higher and causing winds to move outward away from the high pressure area. This movement and warming causes pressures at the surface to drop. Then air at the surface moves toward the lower pressure area, rises, and creates more thunderstorms. Winds in the storm cloud column spin faster and faster, whipping around in a circular motion. When the winds reach between 40 to 61 kilometers per hour, the storm is called a tropical depression. Next is the tropical storm. when the wind speed reached 63 kilometers per hour, the tropical depression becomes a tropical storm. This is also when the storm gets a name. The winds blow faster and begin twisting and turning around the eye or calm center of the storm. Wind direction is counterclockwise, west to east in the northern hemisphere, and clockwise, east to west, in the southern hemisphere. This phenomenon, again, is known as the Coriolis effect. Typhoon. When the wind speeds reach 119 kilometers per hour, the storm is officially a typhoon. The storm is at least 50,000 feet high and around 200 kilometers across. The eye is around 8 to 40 kilometers wide. The winds and the low air pressure also cause a huge amount of ocean water to pile up near the eye of the typhoon, which can cause monster storm surges or daluyong when all this water reaches land. Tropical cyclones need water vapor in order to form. So which is a better source of water vapor? Is it the land masses or the oceans? The answer is obvious, but not all parts of the ocean can provide water vapor. Where do you think would evaporation be greatest? Near the equator or away from the equator? Thus, tropical cyclones require warm water or warm ocean waters to be able to develop. According to scientists, the temperature of ocean water must be 26 degrees Celsius or greater. Given this information, do you think typhoons can form in latitudes away from the equator? Of course, the answer is no. So at this point, let us sum up what we have learned. So typhoons are severe tropical storms that occur over a smaller area. So tropical cyclones or typhoon is formed by a series of events. Heating of the ocean results to evaporation of water. This rising air is known to be moist and unstable, and it leaves a low pressure on the surface of the ocean. Cooler air is sucked into the low pressure created by the rising of warmer air, causing a cyclonic circulation. So at this point, let us answer some questions. Number 1. A tropical cyclone is observed to be approaching the Philippine area of responsibility with sustained winds of 61 kilometers per hour. How would you categorize this tropical cyclone? A. Tropical storm, B. Tropical depression, C. Typhoon, D. Super typhoon. Time starts now. Number 2. A typhoon may form when the sea surface temperature A. drops below 20 degrees Celsius, B. rises above 10 degrees Celsius, C. rises above 26 degrees Celsius, and D. drops below 15 degrees Celsius. Number 3. Which of the following condition element is needed in the formation of tropical cyclone? 1 is warm ocean waters, 2 land mass, 3 water vapor, 4 continuous exit of air. A. 1, 2, and 4, B. 1, 3, and 4, C. 1, 2, and 3, D. 1, 3, and 4. Number 4. Which is the correct arrangement of tropical cyclone categories based on a low to high speed of wind? A. Tropical depression, tropical storm, typhoon, super typhoon. B. Tropical storm, tropical depression, typhoon, super typhoon. C. Tropical storm, tropical depression, super typhoon, typhoon. D. Super typhoon, typhoon, tropical depression, tropical storm. Okay, number 5, what government agency in the Philippines is dedicated to provide flood and typhoon warnings, public weather forecasts, and advisories, meteorological, astronomical, climatological, and other specialized information and services primarily for the protection of life and property? A. DAR, B. DENR, C. PAGASA, D. PVOX. Alright, for number 1, the answer is letter B, tropical depression. Number 2, letter C. Number 3, letter D. Number 4, letter A. And number 5, letter C. So thank you again for watching this video lesson. See you again next time for another science lesson.